Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Lester and thank you for joining us for episode 73. Tonight we'll analyse the Luton game, the Ipswich game, take your questions and look ahead to Man City. Happy autumn, everybody. Delightful, eh? Let's get straight into business. We're at Kenilworth Road. It finished Luton Town 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 1. Nocky, your take on the game and the performance?
How long have you got? Setup was wrong. I thought we were poor from the start. Could have been a couple of goals down very early. They were murdering us down the right-hand side. It wasn't working from minute one. I think the red card almost got him out of jail a little bit, to be honest with you, because it kind of papered over some of the cracks. We just didn't look right from the start. It didn't feel right. We were affording them far too much space all over the pitch. We looked scared. We looked leggy. We looked like we physically weren't up for the challenge. And I will give O'Neill some credit because before the red card, he did make a slight alteration and we started to get a bit of a foothold in the game. But the red card itself is senseless. I have no idea what Bellegarde's doing. I mean, I'd fine him 6 months' wages if that was me, because it was just a completely unnecessary moment of madness. But I mean, if you take that red card out of the game, we didn't play well. It was a really tepid performance, tactically very, very clueless. He said afterwards that he knew what Luton were going to do, but we didn't react to it. Well, surely you've been drilling that and you've been training that all week. It's not hard to know how Luton play. They get the ball wide, feed it in the box, and try and win headers. That's the tactic they're going to use. And we left ourselves very exposed in the wide positions, and we left the fullbacks one-on-one far too often. And it was just a really poor performance. But saying that, we scored an absolutely fabulous goal, Pedro Neto. Moment of quality, and he's making me humble pie because I thought he was in real trouble football-wise last season, and he's come back this year and he looks absolutely superb. So he scored a great goal. We then hit the post, so we could have been 2-0 up, and it's a different story. But I'm sure we'll talk about the handball a little bit later on. But I'm just really frustrated, really just disappointed with the way we approached the game. We didn't make the right changes at the right time. I think when we made a couple of little switches, we left Neto completely exposed up front. Not a position that he wants to be in. It wasn't going to suit him. The game was a little bit tighter, and you need someone at that point to hold the ball up and try and bring other players in, give you a bit of a focal point to stop it from coming back, which was predominantly all the ball was doing. It just kept coming back at us. I thought the game was crying out for a Kalajic to just hold that ball up, but he didn't make that change. And we've got a point, but for me, it felt like a defeat. It was such a disappointing performance, but I think it's a real marker of where we are as a team at the moment.
Tyler, we've gone to Kenilworth Road against a team with no points, hardly anything going for them. I mean, they lost in the cup last night as well. They had 56% possession, 20 shots, 4 on target, in comparison to Wolves' 3 shots and 3 on target. Red card or not, it's not good enough, is it?
No, I think Knocker summed it up well, but it was the start that concerned me. Every single Wolves fan knew Luton will come out the traps, they'll be direct, they'll be physical. And then Gary O'Neill came out and said, we couldn't really cope with them when they've sort of gone man for man on us. I mean, that's a concern, isn't it? If we can't cope with Luton when we're going man for man, I'd like to think we've got better players, more established players. I think Knocker's right. Strangely, it was a bit like the red card at Southampton last season, wasn't it? It sort of gave us a little bit of something to hold on to, and it seemed to wind a few of the players up and get them going. Absolutely no idea, and I'm still waiting for someone to give me a good explanation as to why Neto and Hwang started the game on the sides that they did. No one's been able to answer that question. Just full of bizarre decisions. And yeah, to answer your question, Ryan, it's nowhere near good enough.
And Nocky, let's go on to a positive. And there was one brilliant thing that game, and that was Pedro Neto's goal, which bizarrely came from his weaker side. So I know we want him on his better side because he's on his left, but that bit of individual brilliance from Neto in front of the away end, did 7 different celebrations. It was brilliant. And that's the Pedro that we thought wasn't going to come back. That looks like he has.
Yeah, I mean, the ball to put him away from Gomez was poor as well. I thought he'd underhit it and the angle was all wrong, but he just kept going and he showed a real bit of pace that he'd lost. He seems to have got that back. Just bullied him, forced him out of the way, got himself into a position to burst into the box, then had the kind of intelligence to not hit it from that angle, to take an extra little touch inside to take the second defender out, and the finish is just angry, isn't it? He just absolutely lashed it into the net, and it's an absolutely sensational goal. It's top quality, and I think what he's done for us this season, he's given us something to hold on to in many ways, because he looks now a genuinely top quality footballer, and he looks like the player that was developing up until he got the injuries and kind of fell off a cliff for a couple of years. But yeah, the goal was phenomenal. We didn't build on it, which is always going to be difficult when you've got 10 men. But as I say, we hit the post. If that goes in, then the game's dead and buried, then, isn't it? So it is all about fine margins. But I think the goal, in a sense, papered over the cracks of what was a really disappointing performance. But you can't take that away from him. That was top class.
What I would say, Tyler, about the performance was, I would say that was Wolves' probably worst performance of the season, if excluding last night, because obviously that was a mix-up, but we'll talk about that in a bit. I would say that was Wolves' worst performance, and they spent over half a game with 10 men, and Luton's best still wasn't good enough for Wolves. Did Wolves get away with one, or if you don't take your chances, you get punished there?
I think it's probably a bit of both. I think we did get away with one. I think if Luton had have scored in that spell when they were on top, I'd have feared for us, to be honest. You could argue it was a lack of quality, which they've obviously got, and a bit of luck, but also some very good defending. Aït-Nouri, I thought he was superb defensively, and then he got taken off at half-time, which again I thought was a strange decision. I criticised him as much as anyone, but defensively, a couple of headers at the back post, he was superb. They hit the post themselves. Again, it's another game where our goalkeeper's not really had to make many saves. They're all pretty standard. And to be honest, till the penalty, I thought we looked pretty comfortable, really. I don't think they looked like scoring. So there are a couple of positives to take from it, like you said. But I think any other team, bar Luton, probably put us to bed, don't they, if we're being honest.
It's a really fair point. Luton came out the traps. They were the better side earlier on. Whether the Wolves weren't prepared for what was coming when we played them probably only 6 weeks before, so we knew exactly how they're playing. That was pretty much the same team by one or two players. And I think it's a really good thing that you pointed out there. Despite having 10 men, Wolves look reasonably comfortable. Yes, they're going to not be dominating possession at that point in the game, but their shapes look pretty good. So they actually were probably better without the ball in that game and managed the game. But I want to move on to the bit now that has caused, again, so much anger amongst the fan base. And I don't think we'd be as angry as we are now if Wolves had won, because I've got to be honest, I couldn't care less about the performance if we've won. I don't care if we've been terrible or we're brilliant. I just care that we've won. And if Wolves have gone to Luton and won, and that penalty hadn't have been given, I don't think there's the anger that's out there now. I think there's the concern, but you've got the job done, haven't you? Clean sheet, 1-0, thanks very much. Nocky, I mean, we've talked about it off air. Again, for me, that penalty decision, it's an absolute stinker. And that's 2 now in 6 games that in all likelihood have probably cost Wolves 3 points this season.
Yeah, I mean, after the Man United one, I was quite vocal in the fact that it felt like it was corruption. This one didn't. This one was just absolutely inept officiating. The referee, I kind of don't blame him because it happened that quickly. At first view, it did look like it whacked straight off his hands. So I can kind of see why he's made that decision. But you've got your assistants, you've got your VAR, you've got your assistant VAR and whoever else is in that room. You've got the fourth official, and not one of them knew the rules, which is an absolutely massive concern in terms of our officiating in this country, because the rule is very clear. It's been blasted all over social media. There are mitigating circumstances to a handball in the penalty area. 1 is the proximity of it, and 2 is if he deflects off the same player's body onto his hand. So it's not a subjective decision like the Onana one was. And I know we've been chatting about this quite a bit since the incident, where we all know the Onana one should have been a penalty, but it does come down to a subjective decision. This is black and white. This one's written down. So the fact that they didn't know the rule, and then you've got, I think was it Dermot Gallagher who was backing the decision up to protect his mates. That's half the problem. You've got to be honest, and you've got to be ruthless that was the wrong decision, and it has cost us. But it's not the first time, is it? I mean, I reckon half of the podcasts we've been on this year, we've spoken about referees or we've spoken about VAR, because if you look at all the elite leagues in Europe, the English officials have got to be up there with the worst. I mean, they probably are the worst officials because of the arrogance that they carry when they're officiating, and the job's for the boys. They don't want to get their mates in trouble. They don't want to reverse the decisions. I mean, the lad was in his first game. Let's not upset him. Let's stick with his decision. That's not how it works. If it's the wrong decision,
That's not how it should work.
Well, it's not how it should work, but that's what they're doing at the moment. So it's just another example of awful officiating and a terrible system, which is, in my opinion, absolutely killing the game at the moment.
Keith Hackett, who I've spoke with, who we will eventually get a referee special with, the former head of the Premier League referees. He quoted my tweet. He said, "Never a handball in a million years. Just look at the law. Tell me after it hits the player's knee, how did the officials determine that an action was deliberate?" And not only that as well, I think part of the old law was the ball had to head him towards the goal. I'm pretty sure when it's hit his knee shin, it's going straight up in the air, and that's how he's hit his hand so high up. So,
but they've said as well that it was because his hand was in the air. But you've got to put some kind of sense behind it. He's reading the flight of the ball. The ball, he knows he's going to come across probably at low level because of the angle and the body shape of the attacking player. So he's lunging in because that's where the block needs to be made, which is where he makes the block. So his arms are going to be in the air. You try lunging in without your arms flapping around. That's your natural position, is your arms flying up in the air because you're trying to stretch to get into that position. So that they've not taken any of that into account as well. The player's not square on with him. His angle is to shape to cross the ball. It's going to go low, which is exactly what he did. So the whole thing just stinks. The whole system stinks. And, we don't know if we hold on if we score the penalty against Man U. We don't know if we...
Be nice to find out, though.
Yesterday. But we may well now be sat quite comfortably in the middle of the table, having not played well. And, these things can catch up at you at the end of the season.
Absolutely. Tyler, your take on the penalty as well, because Joe Gomez, for as aggressive and as tenacious he is, he's putting some fantastic balls, his ball recoveries. It's actually a really good block. He's got in front of the man and he's blocked the shot, and he's blocked it fairly and justified, and he's been punished because of a deflection, and it's a really hard one to take.
Yeah, Knock has summed it up, but there's just no way it's ever a penalty. He's not looking to gain an advantage. If he does that like he did, on the hands off the screen like that, and it hits his hand directly, it's a penalty.
Yeah,
because he's trying to gain an advantage of blocking the ball. It's come off his knee, which is a metre away. I think they said a match of the day, or less than a metre. Anyone who has ever played football at any level knows it's not a penalty. And you can see when the ex-pros come out, your Linekers, your Shearers, your Murphys, when they're saying it's not a penalty.
Head of referees.
No, it's not a penalty. Yeah, exactly. So
even Mike Dean.
Yeah, I don't know where does it end? Who knows? But it's what I've always said about VAR. Unfortunately, it's still subjective. It's still opinion based. You could probably ask 100 people, and some would say it's a penalty. And I think that's the problem. It's not black. The only black and white is the offside and the goal line technology. For me, it needs doing away from. However, the referee gave it on the pitch, so it would have stayed with his decision, which I think we could all live with years ago when we're going to football. Because like Knocker said, you're going to get it wrong real time, but there's no excuse to get it wrong when there's a replay.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have the technology like that, again, we saw, well, not again, but a couple of weeks ago, we saw Mike Dean come out. I don't think he's friends with anybody at the Football Association or the referees, whatever they're called these days. He's not going to be very popular there because he said his mate was having a tough game and he didn't give it. That alone itself shows it goes on regularly. Can't upset my mate. As soon as they start to understand, I don't care if he got it wrong. That's what the video is there for. The video is there to protect you because you're human and you make mistakes. You're allowed to make mistakes. It's okay. That's what goal line technology is there for there as well. It's there to protect the game. And at the moment, again, somehow it's been used to weaken the game to protect your friends. Now, I'm all for sticking up for your mates, but when it's your job and they're getting it wrong, and there are people like it cost Wolves, it cost people who've had a bet, it's disappointed the fans. There's people all there. It's affected because the game was spoilt by me by an absolutely terrible decision. So very, very frustrated there. Again, I think the Wolves one are on the end of a stink, and I've joked about it before, but when we get all these back, we'll be flirting with the Champions League. So many bad decisions.
I think they've just got themselves in a bit of a muddle with it, haven't they? Especially with handballs, because I think a couple of the players came out and said they don't know the rules anymore. The players don't themselves, and we don't know the rules as fans, and we don't know what's going on. And I think they've just overcomplicated it that much that they're just in a bit of a pickle with it. There was the Romero one, wasn't it, the Tottenham Arsenal game? They haven't given it real time, and then it's given on the VAR. But they had one a couple of weeks ago, the same at Old Trafford, that wasn't given. There's just no consistency, and I think that's the word we always come back to, isn't it? Is consistency. But when you've got different referees in different situations, I don't think you're going to get it, unfortunately.
I just struggle to understand, though, as Keith Hackett mentioned, how could you not possibly know the rules when you're an elite referee, supposedly officiating in the best league in the world? I don't understand.
Said, one of the 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 people that are there should know the rules, shouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely outrageous.
They're in an elite league, but that doesn't make them elite officials.
Yeah, that's a cracking point.
Let's be honest, because the standard is getting worse every season, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, there's almost feels like sometimes there's a confidence not to make a decision and then they don't go to VAR. But when they go to make a decision, they're too afraid to make the decision to turn it down. It's all twisted the wrong way. We've got 2 games to go through, so I want to go through the team quickly. Another frustrating mistake for me, probably by Jose Sarr, Nocky.
Yeah, he had another one where he's tried to distribute the ball too quickly and Lamine is in trouble. But, I mean, to be fair, Lamine for some reason is trying to pirouette rather than just volleying the ball clear. So, joint responsibility on that one. He didn't have a lot to do, really, did he? I think he can't do a lot about the penalty. There wasn't too many mad moments, but again, his distribution wasn't great, and he was involved in the goal because he tried to fire it out quickly again. So, didn't face a great deal. There was one that hit the post. There was a couple of, I'd say they created opportunities rather than big chances, but he was okay in what he did. But those little errors that are costing us goals are still creeping in his game.
His distribution's probably cost Wolves 2 goals in as many games, hasn't it now? So I don't understand the need to play it out, but I just think he needs to be a bit more careful when he's doing it. Tyler, moving on to the...
I think you're being polite. I think it's ridiculous goalkeeping. 2 games in a row to do that when you're at point at Liverpool 5 minutes ago and you won the look with 10 men. What are you doing?
But surely he's been told to do that, though, isn't he? He must be being told to get the ball upfield quickly.
Twice a week later, you won the look back to the ball.
That does feel like for me. Then, you know how frustrating it is when the keeper holds the ball, falls over, and takes a minute to get.
That's what he should have been doing.
That's what he needs to. That's what he needs to be doing, because if you're not getting peppered in goal and you're comfortable defending in your shape, despite there being a man down, why would you give him the ball back to do it again? Take your time, slow the play down. So yeah, I probably was being a bit polite. Tyler, moving on to both the centre backs, mate, Craig Dawson and Max Kilman.
I thought they were fine, to be fair, but I thought the game suited them. It was a game they could sit deep in, they could head it away, they could get in the way, they could block it. I think it worked perfectly for both of them. I think that's their comfort zone, isn't it? You know, not too far outside our own box. They can defend it. They weren't getting turned in behind. Their big striker, sorry, his name eludes me, doesn't have the pace to trouble them or get behind them. So I thought they were both comfortable, but I think they were comfortable because it was a game that suited them.
Nocky, moving on to the fullbacks, Ryan Ait-Nouri and Nelson Semedo.
I thought Ait-Nouri was the best player first half.
Why did he get subbed?
No idea why he got hooked, especially because I think Semedo was having a bad game. You know, I'm a big Semedo fan, but I thought he had an awful game. He was getting hurt down that side. He was badly exposed. So the decision to take off Ait-Nouri was a bizarre one, unless there's an injury that we weren't aware of. But Ait-Nouri was good. Semedo I thought was relatively poor.
Tyler, moving into the midfield pairing of Mario Lemina and João Gomes.
It's what I'll say all season, unless there's a change in there. They're fine at what they do, but they're limited at retaining the football and they're limited at creating opportunities higher up the pitch. They'll do a job like they did. You know, they're industrious. They work hard. You can't ever fault that. Gomez, yeah, like Nocker said, sort of did play the pass for Neto, you know, to a point. I wouldn't go as far as claim it as an assist, but he went forward and went with it. But I don't know. I still think we're struggling to find that balance with those two. I think they're both very similar, probably a bit too similar. And like I said, I'll say it all season until one of them proves me wrong that they can go the other way and be a bit more creative. I think we're always going to be limited in there.
It feels to me like those two are more suited to when Wolves, I mean, we could say it about most teams, but when Wolves are the technically inferior team in the midfield, like like what they did in the first half, well, like what they did at Man United when they turned it into a battle and got the most out of it, like they did first half against Liverpool, like they did first half against Brighton. They're more suited to a game where they can bring that sort of twist to it and turn it into more of a fight. I'm going to do John Reese and Bellegarde. Very disappointing for him to kick out, and he shouldn't be doing it. And I know Nocky said before, it's really frustrating. He's been played an absolute kipper there by their captain. He's held him down, he's crossed his legs and he's pinned him in, and he's got the reaction that he wanted, and he's rolled around there and he's made an immediate recovery. But I think you have to look in those situations at VAR. Now, Reisner should have got sent off because you can't kick out. Even though it looks more of a push than a kick, you can't do that to somebody. But you have to look at that and look at the other player. Why did he react like that in the first place? Because people just don't go around kicking people. So Bellegarde should do better. However, I do think they need to look. If a player's been held down for a certain amount of time, you just wait and let him hold you down and do nothing about it. So for me, he needs to look deeper there.
I think you're right, but they're going to. I can kind of see why they're doing it. They're going to play to their strengths, aren't they? They know they're inferior to just about every team they play. Then the reality is they're going to be relegated. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Potentially, they could challenge Derby's record score. So they're going to do everything they can. And if they can get an advantage, and if they feel like there's someone they can wind up or get in their head, why wouldn't you do that? You're going to use every tool at your disposal. And you know, if we're playing a Man City and we're a goal up next week, which probably isn't going to happen.
Don't be ridiculous.
If we're in that position, I want Wolves using every single trick in the book. I want to sit in the deck. I want us rolling around. I want us being horrible, because that's what you have to do to try and get something out of a game.
I'm in total agreement, and I understand the gamesmanship, and it's fine. And any team that plays that, it's down to you to negotiate that tactical hurdle. That's fine. I just think when a player's been held down like that, that needs to be looked at as well, because
I agree.
You can't hold people down like that. But moving on,
there's no way the referee saw it real time.
Never
in a million years. You totally guessed his decision to send him off. If he gives him a yellow card, does it get upgraded to a red?
I don't think so. I don't think so. No. I think if he sees that in real time, they both probably get booked.
They both get a yellow card. The Luton player can't do that. But you're right. Our player can't do it either. I personally thought it was a bit harsh, but that's just my opinion.
I think in this day and age, if you do that and the action with the studs and you push like that, I think you're always going to get sent off.
Well, you've got to credit the Luton player for the immaculate recovery, because he looks like he's about a minute off an ambulance off death. And
we didn't look quick when Neto skinned him half hour later, though, did it?
No, absolutely didn't. Talking to Pedro Neto, Tyler, probably Wolves' man of the match for that magical moment.
I don't think there's any probably about it. Clearly miles ahead of anyone on the pitch. I tweeted it after the game. Apart from him, I don't see any genuine Premier League quality. And what I meant, I think some people took that the wrong way. What I meant by that is someone that can probably play for most teams in that division. And I think he's the sort of player that can. I don't think he's top draw. He's not a Man City level footballer. But I was similar to Nocky. I thought he'd really struggled to come back from that injury. But
I think we all did, and we'd all hold our hands up.
We're seeing what we saw. The pace is back, isn't it? The anger's back. The goal was naughty, wasn't it? Let's be honest. It just was. And he's miles ahead of anything we've got at the moment. And he's now getting the stats to back it up. I've always hammered his stats because they've not been good enough. They were like 1 in 9, 1 in 10. He's now coming up with
4 assists, 1 goal this season. So, yeah, pretty.
You can't knock it. So, he's critical to us, isn't he, really? He's got to stay fit. He's got to find the consistency. But, yeah, by far our best player at the moment.
Nocky, probably the pendulum swings the other way, but it's our top scorer, so we can't be too rude. Hwang Hee-chan. He did not have a great game, did he, that first half?
No, but he's a goal threat. And the thing is, a position we're in, whether you rate him or not, he's the only player, along with Neto, who looks like they can hurt a team at the moment. So, no, he didn't have a good game. But he is a player who's got lots of energy. He can get you up the pitch. In terms of his performances, he
can run it out of the pitch.
He can, yeah. If he doesn't score, he doesn't really contribute in the game. But he is the player who's a threat. I think he's got 4 this season. So he's probably already. If he doesn't score another one, he'll probably be top scorer. So
the goal return, you can't knock it. But you have to ask yourself, why has he been subbed at half time in half of our away games so far this season?
Because he's garbage.
There's a reason for that.
I agree entirely, but he's got to stay on he's got to play. He has to play.
Well,
you can't drop a player. He's the only one who looks like he can score your goals.
I'd rather see Hwang, the further up the pitch, the better. I think the deeper he comes, his decision-making football-wise, defensively, he holds onto the ball too long, he gets caught out, and we've seen with his back pass, Newcastle, his clearance, his back pass at Villa. I'm being harsh on his top scorer, but equally, Hwang is good at the business end of the pitch. His pressing's excellent, he works hard, and he does get in goal-scoring positions. So for me, I'd almost consider him playing down the middle because nothing else is working at the moment, and he's not prepared to start Sasha. Last but not least, Matthias Cunha. Now, this is a tactical one. I don't understand. We all know this guy's not a 9. You guys called it straight away. It took me a little bit longer to believe it, but you were right. And he's played him at probably against 3 Land of the Giants, like 3 people like twice the size of Tyler. And you go on then, lads, let's have a battle. And he has got absolutely no chance. Collect the ball from midfield, run from deep, draw defenders in, try and set your teammates up. That's his job. Playing him up there against Land of the Giants, are we surprised the ball kept coming back?
Just wasn't a game for him, was it, really? It worked at Man U, like you said, when you're allowed to play and you're given time and space, but we didn't have any of that on Saturday. And there's obviously issues in that department, isn't there? We'll come on to last night, but he doesn't fancy Sasa for whatever reason. He's brought Fraser on over Fabio, so that tells you all you need to know. So that leaves us with Cunha, so realistically, is he our only option at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I would bring Hwang into the conversation, but I'm not bringing Hwang into the conversation up front against Man City. I think we need to pack the midfield, go 4-5-1, and try not to be embarrassed on Saturday, which I think is inevitable anyway. But we'll talk about the Man City game in a bit. Moving on to game number 2, where sorry, Tyler, where it finished Ipswich 3, Wolves 2.
Don't apologise to me. It's not your fault, Ryan.
2-0. I'm giving it to you because I've given the other one to Nocky. Wolves are 2-0 up, absolutely cruising, and somehow they've managed to lose 3-2. Chris Tyler.
Well, I mean, where do you start? I was probably not good for a podcast, but I was almost a bit speechless with it, really. I think
the silent podcast.
Yeah, but is there a market for that or not? What would you reckon? I think the fact that both teams have made 10 changes and then it's the Championship team that have come out on top, I mean, that's a big concern to me. The substitutions were a concern. The lack of... Apart from the first 20, okay, let's be positive. The first 20 we were sharp and I was brimming a bit. I was like, this is nice to watch. This is good football from Wolves. It was quick, it was sharp, it was pacey. And then as soon as you went 2-0 up, you stopped playing, and it's just becoming a common theme, isn't it? We stop playing in games. Whether or not that's because we can't cope with the opposition, or we're just switching off, or we're not fit. I mean, there's probably multiple reasons, but Knocker was right on the group. As soon as Ipswich scored, I'm waiting for us to lose the game. And that's a bizarre feeling. I'm not thinking Wolves are going to now kick on and get the third and put the game. I'm just waiting for Ipswich to score again. Individual errors, sloppy performances, no leadership, no direction. O'Neill sat there with a face on, like a bit of arrogance, if you ask me, as if to say, he almost looked like he didn't want to be there. And I don't want to call him out, and I don't want to go...
I think there were 2,000 others didn't want to be there at quarter to 10 as well.
Too harsh on him, but whether you agree or not, when the away fans start singing "You don't know what you're doing" to your manager, it ultimately ends one way, and we all know which way that ends. So, yeah, it raised a lot of concerns last night, I did, to be honest. And they were captained by a player that wasn't good for us 10 years ago in League One. Do you know what I mean? That's a concern. And I think when you boil it down, I'm not taking any positives from last night, bar the first sort of 10, 15 minutes.
We'll go straight on to, I mean, just before we go on to the team, I thought Sasha looked a real handful at the start. He got an assist for Hwang when he fed him in. Everything good Wolves were doing were through him. And he looked like the centre forward we've been missing all season. But for whatever reason, and I don't know if the rumours are true, I'm not sure him and O'Neill get on that well. You'd have to say it was personal because the last few games, why has he not been put on? He's fit. He got a winning goal at Everton. He scored in the Cup. Got an assist last night. So you've got to say that he either really doesn't fancy him or we've fallen out with him. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me why he will be completely frozen when we've been struggling to make it stick. Fabio's not really delivered like we thought he would hope so far. Cunha's not a number 9. It's a difficult one.
It's the leadership piece, though. I think Chris touched on it. There's no leaders on that pitch. I mean, O'Neill's been in charge for 8 games. We've capitulated in 4 of them. So 50% of our games we've folded like a deck of cards, and it's pathetic. In all honesty, I know you don't want to call out the manager, but I want to call him out because I think he's tactically. I don't think he knows what day of the week it is. He doesn't know how to recover when things go wrong. He doesn't know how to fix it, and little tactical tweaks here and there that other managers do against us. As soon as Ipswich scored the first goal, you might as well just go home because we're absolutely going to bottle it at that point. And
we did sit off, didn't we, at that point?
He's so far out of his depth, it's embarrassing at the minute. And it only ends one way. It only ends one way. I mean, if I asked you an honest question now, do you think he'll be in charge at the end of the season?
No.
Right.
No, I don't.
So
I don't think he'll be in charge by Christmas.
So how long do we wait then? So why not pull the trigger now and go and get someone with a brain? The only problem is the risk you've got is the only risk you've got is you get rid of him. What market are we shopping in? Are you talking Neil Warnock?
Well, certainly no one off the podcast now.
It's just, I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but I know lots of lovely guys. I don't want any of them in charge of my football team because you've got to have a bit of the devil in you, and there's nothing in that team. Look at Silva. He spent most of the game trying to make people when he came on. What on earth was that about? He's running half the length of the pitch to go and thank someone. I'm going to apologise. That was Bully would have put one on him and then he carried on with the rest of the game. It's just we're so nice as a team. It's horrible. We've got no nasty people. We've got no leaders on there. And we've got a manager who, honestly, he's like a football manager. He hasn't got a clue what he's doing, in my opinion. I just feel I'm so frustrated in the tactics and the things that we can see that are going wrong, which is allowing to happen and not fixing. So
this is club captain Mark Knox sitting on the fence talking about the managerial opinion of the manager. You're listening and watching episode 73 of the Wolves Report with fence sitter Mark Knock, director of football Chris Tyler, and myself, Ryan Lester. Now, and I'm sure lots of people will be agreeing as well. I've not totally given up yet because he's going to be the manager on Saturday. He's going to be the manager against Villa.
But you said he's not going to be the manager at the end of the season.
No, I don't.
You have given up. You're just not willing to admit it yet.
No, I'm not. I'd never give up when I'm watching Wolves. I've never given up because
not on the team, on the manager.
If he's still there, then I have to support him because I don't want to be proven right. I don't want you to be proven right, and he's sacked. I want the stars to align. 3 Man City players to get sent off, 4 of them to get lost, and then Wolves to have like 54 shots and score 1 of them. That's what I want, but it's not going to happen. But I'll be there on Saturday supporting them because that's what we do, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we'll be supporting them regardless. If we get relegated to the National League, we'll still be there because we're daft. But that's not a relevance on whether you think the manager's good enough. I mean, if we don't beat Man City, which, let's face it, we're not going to, that's 1 win in 7, and then you've got Villa to come to Molineux. So do you wait until you're 10, 11, 12, 13 games down the line, or do you wait to Christmas and hope there's a golden goose like we had with Lopetegui around the corner? I just think if there's a decision to be made, you make that decision now before it gets out of hand.
Let's go through the team and then we can go deeper into this because a lot of these.
Let's keep talking about the manager. It's fun.
No, some of the questions reflect on this as well. Let's just fly through the team. Ex terrible goalkeeper who I scored past at Molineux, Chris Tyler. Tell me about Bentley's keeping at Ipswich.
Nothing to say. It's disgraceful. All 3 goals basically. The first one, he's lost his positioning. Yeah, good strike, but shouldn't get beat there.
Near post.
Second one, I'd expect my 10-year-old lad to save. Third one, pop it on wrist, isn't it? Just get a hand there and keep the ball out. 3 terrible mistakes. They're
mistakes that Jose Sarr doesn't make. He's a good shot stopper.
Yeah. I saw a couple of people, in fairness, tweeted that, if we play a number 1 goalkeeper, there's a chance we come away with a 2-3-0 win. And it's a fair point. It just proves, I was one of those to say Sarr needs a kick up the backside. He's the most comfortable goalkeeper in the league at the moment because there's no way in a million years Bentley's anywhere near ready to play Premier League football.
Yeah, I agree reluctantly. Nocky, moving on to Johnny Otto.
He was okay. He was okay. I think he got caught out for the equaliser, but that was kind of Bueno's fault because for some reason Bueno passed Ladapo onto him. Johnny's never set. He's never the right side, and Ladapo turns him and shoots and scores.
And he's not a right centre back really either, is he?
He's not a right centre back. Yeah, ask Super Gaz about that. But he's. I thought his performance was okay, but he is what he is. I think we all expected he was going to be moved on in the summer, and probably should have been.
The only thing I'd say, sorry on John, is I'm absolutely flabbergasted when you're chasing a game that he played 90 minutes and wasn't taken off for a forward player.
And we kept 3 at the back as well. Incredible.
Absolutely bonkers.
I'm going to move on to Santiago Bueno, who's had quite a bit of stick. Now, I don't think that's fair, to be honest. I know you could say he's playing against a championship team. This guy's not played a game of football since he missed the last few games of last season in Spain. So this is his pre-season now and his first kick. Yeah, he's going to be a bit rusty. He might come good. So to write someone off and give him that stick and his debut when he's not played for that long, I think it's a little bit harsh. I liked his aggression in terms of how close he was getting to on the halfway line. That's a defender that allows you to play further at the pitch and squeeze and get aggressive with the defender. I did like that. Yes, he looked a bit leggy, but what are we expecting if you've not played football for 4 or 5 months? So I'm going to cut in some slack. Hopefully he'll come good, and hopefully we'll see more of him.
Looks dangerous from set pieces as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he set up the goal from the keeper's save, and then he had one that was disallowed as well. Did he? Is that the one that was it him that hit the bar?
Second half when he scored from. Yeah, I like the way he attacks the ball. Definitely.
Yeah, he attacks it well. This one's for you, Tyler, especially for you. Wolves goal scorer. Toti.
I'm just flabbergasted that this guy's got a living as a footballer. I'm sorry.
Wow, you two tonight.
I made a concerted effort to watch him because I give him stick, and I was thinking, am I being a bit harsh on him? I think for 70 minutes, every time he got the ball, he passed it straight to their players. I've got no more. He's athletic, he's pacey. I've sort of denied about putting him in the team for back three because he does give you that. In fairness, he gives you a bit of pace and a bit of physicality that we haven't got. But my word, so far out of his depth to be a Premier League footballer.
Yeah, tough game for him on the ball. Right place, right time, but it wasn't a great footballing performance. Nocky, moving on to both the wing-backs, Matt Doherty and Hugo Bueno.
Doherty looked like he was towing a caravan most of the game. Honestly, he ain't lost a yard of pace, he's lost the field. I think Hugo Bueno...
Stop it.
You've got to laugh sometimes, haven't you? Because it's not been a good week. I think we're delirious. It's ridiculous.
When you've been as bad as this, you've got to find some humour in it, haven't you?
Jokes aside, though, that was a concern for me. So, again, I've been saying to play Doherty, but
over Nelson in the 0% that's happening.
Even as wing back now, he got into a few good positions, didn't he, offensively? But can't believe that. Severe lack of pace, that's a concern. He was making Johnny look quick, and that's a worry.
Hugo,
I think Bueno was okay without affecting the game, I'd say. Nothing special, 4 out of 10.
I'm going to do Boubacar Traoré. I actually thought Boubacar was okay. He's the one player that looked like he was interested from start to finish. He got an early booking, which I think was a bit harsh. He was pressing, he was aggressive, he was box to box, he travelled with the ball. Here we go. His distribution wasn't particularly great all the time, but he's somewhat. Have you two broke yourselves? What's going on?
I think it's pure deliriousness because I think we're just laughing.
For anyone listening to the show and watching it on the podcast, Nocky and Tyler have turned pink and they're just giggling. I don't know.
It's gone rapidly downhill.
If you don't laugh, you'll cry. That's okay. Yeah, I thought just mute yourselves and have a little giggle. Boubacar was probably one of Wolves' better players, but that doesn't really say a lot about Wolves' performance because he was probably still only a 6 out of 10. But he's someone that I thought that could probably be getting the side against Man City on Saturday to add extra legs in there. Tommy Doyle, Tyler.
I think you made a good point on Booby. The only thing was, I thought he'd probably come in on Saturday. And the fact he's now played... Did he play 90 minutes last night? I think he might have.
He went far off in the end. Yeah, he did play 90 minutes, yeah.
I thought he'd come in the midfield 3, but I don't know. Now he's played pretty much a full game. I'm not too sure, but I agree with you. I think it was the bright spark. Doyle, I think it's a bit like Bueno. I think it's a bit unfair to, really judge a player too much. He looks... neat and tidy.
He's probably the least mobile of our midfielders, but probably the most technically gifted.
Yeah, I thought he was a bit comfortable. I think he can probably take a risk. He can take a punt. He can try something. I thought he played it very safe. He's going to come, whether we like it or not, with high pedigree just because of the team he's come from. I think there's more to come. He's obviously had a bit of a niggle as well recently. So I'd like to think there's more to come. But I think, like you said, I presume he can't play Saturday. And with Doyle playing, Boubacar playing the 90, it does raise question marks who comes in for Bellahard, but I'm sure we'll come on to that later. But he was neat and tidy, but I want to see a bit more, I think.
What I would say about Boubacar, I think when we signed him, he had the second or best third pressing stats in European football. So if you're that fit, he's probably going to be okay for Saturday, because he's a very, very athletic guy. He can get box to box really well. Moving on to the forward line, Noki starting with Hwang Hee-chan. Great finish for the opening goal.
Yeah, got himself into a really good position as well. As we said, he's good going forward. Defensively, you kind of have kittens with him, but as soon as he's going in the right direction, he looks a threat and got himself into space really well, anticipated the opportunity, touch, finish.
Nice assist from Sasa.
Nice assist from Sasa, yeah. But other than that, I don't think he really impacted the game at all.
I think he's very unlucky to get that booking. He's actually saying they're 7 or 8 yards away.
And
so
he's right
telling
as
the
well.
truth. And he's absolutely right, and he gets a booking for it. So sometimes the referees, I know they've got to be strict with players, like talking to them, but if you're like, look, ref, look, they're 7 or 8 yards away. It's ridiculous. Tyler, moving on to your secret lover, Pablo Sarabia.
Yeah, I think I'm probably coming around to your way of thinking, fellas, to be honest.
What a show, Twig. What a show.
Again, I mean, there was a clear frustration, wasn't there, when he came off? But he's not doing enough. And I think you can...
But why are we asking him to go wide? The wider he goes...
Yeah, agreed. This is going to sound stupid, but you can tell he's played at a much higher level than what we operate at, because he's trying to do things that our players... There was a ball second half that was beautiful.
Oh, it was wonderful. The weight, yeah.
Between the defenders. I think it was Hwang. I mean, no surprise there. He was nowhere near it. But that's the sort of level he's used to playing at. Quick, sharp players. And either he's a level above it and we can't keep up with him and it's making him look a bit stupid. But again, just play him inside, especially a game like that. Play him just in front of the 2 centre midfielders in a free roll. See what he can do. You're playing wing back, so play him just tucked in central.
He dictated against Blackpool in the last round, didn't he? He controlled the whole game.
I think his days are... If he's not going to play in a number 10 role, like you've said before, Ryan, I don't see how he fits in, unfortunately.
Yeah, he's for as talented as he is, he got knocked off the ball very easy. And when the modern day fullbacks are athletic, they're quick, they're strong, and he just gets bullied quickly. Where he could buy a yard in centre midfield and get into the pockets, it can affect a game. The wider he is, he's just absolutely pointless. So, technical player, weak game, bullied by Ipswich. I'll do Sasha. Did tire, understandably. Obviously, it's a huge injury he's coming back from. But again, he's impacted the game. I think he's impacted almost every game he's been involved in. He's done something to make a difference. I mean, I think he's deceptively more mobile. I don't think he's a complete slow. He's not slow. He's got energy. He presses. Again, it's an assist. I think he's a clever footballer, and I think he's a footballer with attributes that Wolves don't have at the moment. So it's a real surprise how he seems to have been frozen out for a few games. That concludes that terrible evening at Portman Road. I don't think I'm ever going to see Wolves win a trophy in my lifetime, but it'd be nice to see if they just tried to win one once. That would be nice. We'll move on to the questions, and there is quite a strong theme about the manager in the questions. So let's fire away with those. Before we do, you are listening and watching episode 73 with fence sitter Mark Knock, director of football Chris Tyler, and myself, Ryan Lester. Richard Holmes asks, it's clear Gary O'Neill is out of his depth. However, for reasons he was appointed, can we expect any better to replace him? Great question, Richard. Knocky.
No, probably not. I mean, he was appointed because he was cheap. He was available. He was a yes man. He wasn't going to challenge much back. So I think that if he was to go, we'd all want someone like a Graham Potter, but he's not going to come because he's going to want financial assurances. So you're kind of shopping in the Neil Warnock, Alan Pardew sort of pool, aren't you, for being totally honest? So it's not great. I mean, is there a little foreign coach we could get hold of? Is there someone available who could do something a little bit different. But the way we're being run at the moment, you don't anticipate anyone better coming in. So it's worrying.
Quick question to you both. Yes or no? And I think it'll be a 2-1 answer with you two against me. Obviously, taking the league table into consideration, the teams around, if O'Neill stays to the end of the season, do Wolves stay up?
No.
Tyler?
I don't think so.
So are you on the fence with that one, or a definite no?
I think I'm trying to give him the full benefit. I think it's still early to judge. If you want an answer, I'd say no.
Okay, so 2-1 then. I think you'd still keep Wolves up, but I am the positive one here, aren't I? Nocky keeps us in track, and then you just bring us into reality, Tyler.
I think
so, yeah.
You'd be right in saying that purely because of the 3 teams that have come up look absolutely appalling. But I do think Burnley are going to put a little something together. I just got a feeling they're going to kick on. And other than those 3, I can't see any team in the league weaker than Wolves. I don't see anybody worse than Wolves.
I would argue Bournemouth in there.
No, I think Bournemouth are stronger than us.
Richard, thank you for your question and regular contribution to the Wolves report. Graham J asks, I no longer feel a connection to Fosun, the manager, the players. I had a very close bond with the whole club under Nuno. Does anyone feel the same? What a great question. Tyler?
I think from looking at social media, quite a lot of people feel the same. And I don't think you can put it down to one thing. And I think a lot of people, Nocky touched upon it earlier with the VAR, how that's killing the game. I think that does have an impact on people going to watch football matches now. And it's not a coincidence that's been the same sort of time. I think Nuno, we've got to look back at it now with about time to think about it, that it was a bit of a one-off, wasn't it? You tend not to get that very often. I've been a Wolves fan, over 30 years, and he's clearly the one manager that there was a bond with, and everything just came together at the right time. Do I feel a connection to the current group of players? No. The manager, definitely not. And the board and the company that own the company, again, definitely not. So from a personal perspective, I don't. That doesn't mean I support them any differently or don't want them to do as well. But there is something not quite there at the moment, isn't it? It goes a lot of things. Ticket prices going up, the stadium being shoddy. You could talk about a million reasons why at the moment there's a bit of a disconnect.
Okay.
Can I ask you on that, though? Is that because we don't feel a connection with the players, or is it because it's results-based? Because if Wolves were winning, that's where your connection comes from.
I think if we're sitting on
losing, then
I think if we're sitting on 7 points now, I think we all feel a hell of a lot different. I mean, last night it is what it is. I'd rather have held on at Luton, and I'd rather have had the penalty at Man United. I think if Wolves are on 7 points now, it's not been pretty, but I don't think the fan base is as angry as it is now, and then you naturally feel more of a connect.
Yeah.
But what's success? Success now for me, staying in the Premier League.
Unfortunately, that is our bar now. Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily feel connected at the back end of last season. I wasn't connected to J-Lo really because of his demeanour and his way of doing things. I think we just had a special couple of years with your Codys, your Jimenez's, your Jotas, clear passion and people that you made you want to go and watch somewhere else. I think that hasn't been the case. The football's turgid. There's no entertainment. We don't score goals. Like I said, it's not one thing you can put your finger on, but you are right. If we're winning games and we're successful, of course, it makes it easier, but we're not.
Graham J, great question. Thanks for your contribution. I've had so many questions this week on Twitter. I'll put them all on here. I try and get through as many as I can. So unfortunately, with the time running out, we're not going to get them all on, but I do appreciate your regular contribution. They're a fun part of the show that people see to really interact with. Mr. Moonlight asks, what were the attributes of Gary O'Neill that Hobbs saw suitable for managing our club? All I see is a novice manager and someone who simply looks like a rabbit in the headlights. After last night, he certainly did look like a rabbit in the headlights, especially when that second goal went in. I think, as Nocky said earlier on, it looked like the game was lost. And I think as soon as they equalised, we knew we were going to lose. What attributes did he see? I think he saw that a manager with probably a lesser squad and a smaller budget kept a club up with those things. And he was available, which I think Nocky also said earlier on. And whether we like it or not, whether we like it or not, and I know Tyler's got contacts as well. He came with a good reputation in the game. People spoke highly of his of his attention to detail. And if you're judging it on his one bit of management, whether we're being snobbery or not, he kept a poor team up in the Premier League, and that was his job to do that. And maybe that's where they see Wolves now. So do they tick the boxes of where we think Wolves should be and where they're going? I don't think so. But in reality, is that where we're at? I'd probably say so. Would you agree, gents?
Yeah, he was cheap, he was quick, he was easy. It's the reality of it.
I'm going to take one more question for a drop in a little subject for a little bit of debate that I talked about on a tweet that was quite popular. So we'll just get one more question in. We'll go with Richie G. The two teams we put out against Luton and Ipswich have 22 very talented footballers. Under Lopetegui, I believe the current squad is top 12. Would you agree? I think, did we finish 13th last season or 12th? Did we finish 13th? So I get Richie's theory, but in theory he's correct, because pretty much that squad, with the exception of Neves, finished around that mark last season. Tyler?
I've said it for years. I don't think the players are that good, to be brutally honest. And I think that we were sort of calling for the end of the era with Neves, and obviously Nunes has gone as well. I think if you take them two out, we are weaker, aren't we? Let's be honest. So I talked about it at the start. I think bar Neto, I think we struggle for genuine Premier League quality. I think a manager should certainly be keeping us in the league with 40, 45 points. I don't think the squad's a top 12 squad, but I think it's a 15th, 16th, never get too worried squad, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree. Thank you to everyone that responded to the Twitter post. I think I've had 50 or 60 questions on various platforms and DMs. Nowhere near enough time to get them on, but I do appreciate your regular contribution. I tweeted a couple of days ago in regards to Gary O'Neill, and the circumstances have not just been him showing some concerning attributes that I don't want to see in terms of his excuses so far. He has concerned me, but I think the picture runs deeper than this. And I believe he's inherited 2-3 years, maybe longer than that, of bad decisions, bad appointments. And I am truly grateful for what Fosun have given Wolves. 2 of the 3 best years of my life, the promotion season, the FA Cup semi-final season, the European season, 3 magical seasons. It's as good as we get. But when you break it down, Walter Zenga, fail. Lambert, fail. Nuno, success. Bruno Lage, fail. Steve Davis, fail. Lopetegui did a job but left us in the brown stuff, moderate. Gary O'Neill, failing. So that's a 14% success rate of managers, a 14% moderate rate, and a 72% failure rate. Now, I am grateful, and I can be grateful, but you can also be critical as well. And I think Fosun haven't been called out enough for their decision-making. Just jumping on top of that before I bring you boys in, probably the 6 bits of worst transfer business, including 2 on top. Patrick Catroni, 16 million. Fabio Silva, not delivering, 35 million. William Jose loan, the worst player I've ever seen play for Wolves, 2.5 million. Kiyani Hoover, 8 million. Been out on loan 20 times. Trincao, 5 million loan, poor. Goncalo Guedes didn't want to be here. £96.5 million on those 6 players that have not put any kind of impact for our football club, right? Add on top of that, loaning Cody to Everton for free, loaning Adama Traore to Barcelona for free. With loan fees, then you'd have to say that's over £100 million worth of business and money that Wolves have had to claw back now in the last window because of that's the Fosun business. Now, as I said, I am great for Fosun. I do think, though, this manager's picked up the baton from all those bad decisions. And I've only picked out a few there, but I've done my homework on it. I'd like to get your take on my opinion on that, boys.
I think, you made some really valid points. Excuse me. But I think a lot of that was the Mendes merry-go-round. You have to take the rough with the smooth. I mean, we got Neves for cheap. We got Moutinho for cheap. We got Nunes for a price that gave us a profit 12 months later. So you're going to get a few dodgy ones on the back of that. You don't get your Willy Bollies and your Diogo Jotas, and then don't get a little bit of poor quality players coming along with them. There has been some terrible decisions. I think the managerial appointments are the biggest concern. We got lucky with Nuno. Lopetegui, he did leave us in the brown stuff, like you said, but had we given him what he wanted, I don't think he would have left. I think he would have stayed, and I think we would have been pretty comfortable this year. But the team they didn't want to back him. So yeah, the decisions have been poor. But is that Fosun, or is that the lack of football people that are at the club at the moment? Because Jeff Shee seems to be doing absolutely everything and not be any good at any of it. So if you've got someone like that who's got so much power and so much control over the club, you're kind of struggling, aren't you? I think if we'd have had more football people in charge who could have made those decisions, maybe the mistakes aren't there quite as prevalent as they are. And because at the end of the day, Fosun are an investment company. They're not a football managing company. They don't manage things. They just invest, they make money, they move on, they eat profits out of stuff. So they're reliant on the people around them.
And I want to make this really clear. I am not anti-Fosun. I'm very grateful. But I am anti-bad decision-making. And I'm anti-bad decision-making, making mistakes again and again. And you'd think that those people in charge of the football things would learn. And if Jeff doesn't understand things in terms of football, Jeff's a brilliant businessman. You don't work for Fosun if you're not a brilliant businessman. Absolutely. However, you need to surround yourself with brilliant football people. And if it's not working, you need to change it and bring great football in. Tyler.
Yeah. I genuinely think you could write a list of 20 to 25 things that have been bad decisions, bad signings, bad judgments. I just think we lack a football hierarchy at the club. I think we lack a director of football. I mentioned a few weeks ago, Matt Hobbs is getting a lot of plaudits for signing players, but realistically, are they the players that the manager wants? Are they players that fit into the way we want to play? I think we're very quick to make decisions and judge people sometimes, and it's only after time, similar with O'Neill, that we're going to know ultimately. But I think there's a multitude of reasons, like genuinely 20, 25, as the things we can point the finger to. But like you said, Ryan, it's been the most successful period for the football club. So God knows where we'd be if we'd have got those decisions right.
Absolutely. Appreciate the comments I'm showing on the screen as well. I'm glad you're laughing at our laughing, because if you don't, sometimes when it's bad, you have to have a laugh. Before we move on to playing the best team in world football, which is a nice next fixture, I just want to say a big thank you to my two pundits. They come on most weeks when they can. Obviously, they've got families and jobs, but these guys have given up their time tonight after two awful performances and giving it their time to be on the show. So a personal thank you to both of you, gentlemen. Much appreciated. But that's enough of me being nice. Let's talk about the reality of Wolverhampton Wanderers facing the European champions on Saturday. Nocky, how are we going to line up for this one?
I'd rest everyone and play the 23s. Because I just think it's a
we
waste
should have played
of time.
the best team last night.
It's a dead rubber. We can't win it, in my opinion. I just think the way we are at the minute, that you've always got a puncher's chance, haven't you? But I just think they're so good and they're so organised. The only thing I'm kind of holding on to is that Guardiola's got the ump, because they can't fly back after their cup game at Newcastle, so they've got to drive back. And sometimes when that happens, he makes a few funny decisions and rests some people just to make a point. But I think with the quality they've got, it's probably damage limitation before we've kicked off.
Tyler?
Yeah, terrified, to be honest. You laugh about it. We've let in 3 goals to Ipswich, Crystal Palace, Liverpool, 4 to Brighton. We could easily lose count Saturday. I think it could get that bad, really. And it feels for me a bit like how we were under Dave Jones, when I think we weren't really competing. And I don't know why I've got that feeling. Maybe it's because of what we've seen recently, but I think it'll be the easiest game Man City will have all season, to be honest. I think we'll be very nice, we'll be very open, and we'll just let them walk around us and put us to bed, basically.
If Wolves try and press Man City and get humiliated, then my neutral but concerned stance on the manager will change drastically. I do not want to be humiliated. I expect to be beaten 3-4-5 because Man City are brilliant and Wolves are not very good. However, I don't want to open the door and say, go on then after 30 seconds like they did with Jack Grealish last season. I don't want that. I want to play 4-5-1, tuck in, ball, frustrate, put some tackles in, show some fight. Man City will leave you opportunities to counter with pace. You've put Barnes in for Neto or for Hwang on the right, whichever it is, just to give you that out ball a few times a game, I'll take that. But if we take them on, it will be a Premier League record score. We will be humiliated. And then he won't deserve me being sticking up or Tyler sticking up for him or giving him more time. I don't mind if we lose to Man City, but I want us to see go with a plan. Be tough in the tackle, be horrible, spoil the game and counter at them. There's no way you can go toe-to-toe with them. Nobody can do it. Moving on to the fun bit then, when the score predictions come in. I mean, I don't know how long we've got for this one, but Nocky, your score prediction for Wolverhampton Wanderers versus the European champions?
5-0 City.
Tyler?
Yeah, I was going to say 5, so I'll go 6.
That's disgusting. Kuna's not going to score first, and Wolves aren't going to win. Let's just make that really clear. I'm going to go with Wolves 0, Man City 3. No shots on target, but a doggy performance. And the fans being very upset regardless, which they're probably entitled to because it's been absolutely horrendous. Thank you for joining us for episode 73 of the Wolves Report. Thank you to club captain Mark Knock, also a fence sitter, and also Chris Tyler, our director of football. See you next week. Up the Wolves.